Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the game preview. Everton taking on Aston Villa this Sunday afternoon in the Premier League. Both sides getting off to a losing start last weekend. Everton, of course, losing 1-0 to Marco Silva's Fulham side. Aston Villa were on the end of quite a heavy 5-1 away defeat to Newcastle United at St James's Park. However, that doesn't really tell us much about this Aston Villa team or about what we can come to expect on Sunday. We know this is a very, very good Aston Villa team managed by a very, very good manager in Unai Emery. They've obviously got European football this season, which is fantastic for them and in a competition that you would favour them doing well in. We obviously know Unai Emery is the master of the Europa League, and it isn't quite the Europa League, but it is arguably an easier competition to win than the Europa League. Obviously, we saw West Ham winning the Conference League last season, so they'll fancy their chances in that competition this season. They'll also fancy the chances in the Premier League as well. Had a fantastic season last season, obviously, after they got rid of Steven Gerrard and brought in a much more experienced, much better manager. They started to hit the ground running. They've done some really smart business so far in the transfer window, bringing in Pau Torres, of course, bringing in Yuri Tielemans on a free from Leicester, which I think is a really, really good deal to do. And obviously, most recently, they've brought in Moussa Diaby, who is somebody that was on Everton's radar for quite some time and somebody that we've spoken about numerous times on this channel before he went to Aston Villa as a player that Everton should have been looking at bringing in. So they've got a good squad. Aston Villa, they've got a good team. Like I said, I don't pay too much attention to that result last weekend against Newcastle because Newcastle obviously are a fantastic side at the moment. They themselves will be playing in Europe this season. They themselves will fancy themselves to have another good solid season in the Premier League under Eddie Howe, and hopefully for them finishing a Champions League position again. So I don't really look too much at that Newcastle game and take too much from it. They were very solid in pre-season, Aston Villa, and this will of course be an extremely difficult game. We know it will be. It's their first home game of the season. They have their first Europa Conference League game next week, midweek, against Hibernian, and then they've got Burnley away after that. So they'll be looking at this game. Aston Villa has won that they will be expecting to take all 3 points in. We played Aston Villa in the opening away game of last season, and it wasn't a particularly memorable game of football, and it certainly wasn't a particularly a good outcome for Everton either on that day. I remember it being about 45 degrees as well, and we were right at the top of Villa Park, so it was boiling hot. But again, we have notoriously found it difficult in to go to Villa Park in recent years and to get results there. Even like I said at the start of last season, when Villa weren't in great form, and obviously Steven Gerrard was their manager and they were struggling, they still managed to get 3 points against Everton. So this will, of course, without a doubt, be an extremely difficult game of football for Sean Dyche and his Toffees. He has had his pre-game press conference today. He's spoken about some team news updates. He's spoken about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and said Dominic Calvert-Lewin's involvement in the midweek behind closed doors friendly against Manchester United did form part of the final part of his recovery. So he will be in the thinking for a place on Sunday in the team. He was also asked about Arnaud Danjuma. He said Arnie is a little bit further behind in his recovery. However, he is progressing well. He said the same about Vitaly Mykolenko, so I suppose the expectation will be that them two will be on the bench once again this Sunday. He was asked about Yusuf Chamiti, and he said that Yusuf Chamiti is in a roundabout way, effectively, he said he's not ready. He said he's a young player. He said he's got, he's obviously got a lot of time ahead of him. He's got a lot of time to improve. He's got a lot of time to set in. He's got a lot of time to, work things out. And effectively, Sean Dyche, said somewhat of the likes that he might not be ready at this moment. So maybe we would have hoped to have seen him at least on the bench on Sunday. But after the press conference today, I'm pretty confident in saying we probably won't see Yusuf Chamiti maybe until that game against Doncaster in the Carabao Cup. Next week, is it, or in a couple of weeks' time? So yeah, listen, maybe we will. Maybe it's a surprise maybe Sean Dyche will throw him on the bench and we'll all be sort of a little bit more excited come Sunday afternoon, but I'm not quite sure that will be the case, and ultimately for Everton this game for me their primary objective for this game is to not lose, and you know, I don't want to have a negative mentality. I don't want to have a negative outlook so early on in the season because we are so early on in the season and anything can happen. And look, yeah, whilst Everton lost that game against Fulham and whilst it was incredibly frustrating, we did create a lot of chances and we were the much better team. And maybe on another day with another striker up front, we'd have scored and we'd have either got a point or won that game. So I don't want to just be negative for the sake of it. However, I think if Everton can come away from this one with a point, I think it will be a decent point, and I don't think it would be a point that many people would sort of be unhappy with. Now, obviously, it would be a much better point if we'd have beaten Fulham last week and we'd be able to sit here and go, right, well, we've got 4 points out the first 2 games there. That's an absolutely fantastic start. We didn't beat Fulham last week, so you know, it doesn't add more pressure to this fixture, but it, again, obviously, a point maybe is not deemed as positive as it would have been had we have beaten Fulham. But, you know, I think if we can go there, we're going to have to be resilient. We're going to have to be hard to beat. They've got some good players in attacking areas. Aston Villa, the likes of Moussa Diaby, who's hit the ground running instantly over there. Yuri Tielemans, who had a massive impact, you know, at Goodison Park last season playing for Leicester. We know his quality. We already know the likes of Ollie Watkins and how good he is. Emiliano Martinez, of course, in goal, who again is you know, a really well established, experienced, good quality goalkeeper. So this ultimately will be an extremely difficult game of football. Aston Villa are very, very, very good going forward, very strong going forward. Emi Buendia, of course, is there. Don't know whether he's carrying an injury at the moment, but they obviously are light years ahead of where we are going forward. I think defensively and midfield-wise, there's probably not too much difference in the two teams, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Both got solid goalkeepers, both got improvable defences, but solid defences. Midfield similarly, but Aston Villa's attack, you know, when you look at names like Moussa Diaby, Ollie Watkins, even Leon Bailey, who didn't have a great season last season, but quality-wise, obviously, Yuri Tielemans in there as well. Everton just can't compete with that level of quality. So it will be difficult to keep this Aston Villa team out. Ultimately, like I said, we can't be making you know, the same types of defensive errors that we made against Fulham. I know Fulham didn't create an awful lot and we weren't exactly put under the cosh against Fulham at any one point, but defensively at times we were shaky. There was a couple of moments. Nathan Patterson, I pointed out, you know, last week, and I believe he was extremely poor against Fulham. If he is going to start this weekend, which is more than likely because obviously Seamus Coleman is still out, then we need a better performance from him. You know, the two centre-backs, we need more from them as well. I think Michael Keane was probably a little bit of fault for Fulham's goal last week. This will be a much more difficult test than last week was. Firstly, because we're away from home, and it's Aston Villa's opening home game of the season, and we know Villa Park can be really, really loud, and they've got a great fan base, Aston Villa. Huge football club, of course. But also because this Aston Villa team have got much better attacking options than what that Fulham team had. You know, if you just go like for like, Fulham played 45 minutes with Raul Jimenez. Ollie Watkins is a much better forward than what Raul Jimenez is, and probably a better forward than Alexander Mitrovic as well. Wingers-wise, okay, Willian caused us some problems. He's sicky. Moussa Diaby, for me, is a much better player than him in the midfield. Centrally, creatively, they had Harry Wilson. Yuri Tielemans now, for me, is a better player. So, yeah, this will be difficult. It will be difficult to keep Aston Villa out, and what I fear may happen is, I don't know whether you remember, but we played Aston Villa a couple of years ago at Villa Park, and it was a really, really tight game. It was 0-0, I think, for 60-odd minutes, 70-odd minutes, really tight game. They had a couple of chances, we had a couple of chances, and they got the breakaway goal, and all of a sudden, within 9 minutes, Everton were 3-0 down. Within 9 minutes, because our heads dropped because we'd conceded the goal and we lost the shape and we lost the confidence, and their heads obviously, you know, were lifted and their quality then shone through, and ultimately we went from you know, a really good, solid, tight performance, 0-0. 10 minutes later we were 3-0 down and the game was over, and you know, we were walking away with the defeat. So, you know, whilst again, I don't want to speak into existence losing games of football before the ball is even being kicked, because I just don't really see the point in it. But, realistically, we live in a world where there can only be one of three outcomes on Sunday, and one of them is losing. And if we do lose, it won't be the end of the world, because, as I said, Villa are a good team, a team in Europe, and a team that they will be expecting to beat us. They will be sitting there expecting them to go out and put in a performance and ultimately come away with all 3 points. And it's down to Everton and it's down to Sean Dyche to set this team up to disrupt that. That ultimately is what we have to do on Sunday. We have to be a disruptor. Now, can we win the game off the back of that? We can. Is that likely? Well, we had 29 shots at goal last week and we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net once. Now, okay, we may or may not have Dominic Calvert-Lewin back in the starting 11. I think if Dom does come back, I can't see him playing 90 minutes. I think he will either start the game and come off with 20 minutes, half an hour to go, or he will come on with 20 minutes, half an hour to go. So, again, there's absolutely no guarantee that there'll be any difference in terms of the finishing from last week. You would like to hope that if Dom had had one of those chances Neil Maupay had in the first half of the game against Fulham, he would have put them away. But we've had no sort of additions in terms of transfers. Obviously, we've had Jack Harrison come in, who ironically was linked to Aston Villa as well, but he won't be fit for this game. So, very much the same squad, and I expect very much the same team that played against Fulham to play against Aston Villa on Sunday as well. As I said, you might have Dominic Calvert-Lewin in there for Neil Maupay to start with, but I don't think there'll be many other changes around the rest of the team. We just have to hope that we can go out, we can be resilient, we can be hard to beat, and listen, very rarely do I look forward to an Everton game in general in this day and age. And this isn't even just, people can go, oh, Cam, you're being negative, it's the start of a new season, stop being negative, this, that and the other. I'm not really bothered anymore, to be honest, if people think it's negative or people think it's pessimistic or people want me to sit here and say, yeah, we're boss, we're going to win this game 5-0, we're great. I'm not really bothered, because at the end of the day, I'm not negative or positive, I'm just realistic. And realistically, Everton's away form in the last 2 years has been absolutely terrifying. And as I said, I very rarely look forward to an Everton game nowadays. I was looking forward to last week against Fulham, and I left incredibly frustrated and incredibly angry, as you will have seen in the instant match reaction, because of the fact that I know that our away form this season is going to be, is more than likely not going to be great. So we need to ensure our home form is better. And I'm sorry, but we absolutely should have won that game last week, and I can't scratch that feeling. I can't get it out of my head. I can't overlook it. I can't even just treat it as first game of the season, we were a bit unlucky, on another day we win that. I can't, because unfortunately, if Everton go down at the end of this season, which is very possible considering how poor we've been in the last 2 seasons, we can't say to the Premier League, can we? But we had 29 shots against Fulham, so really on another day we'd have won that game. So can you give us 3 extra points? That's not how it works. You either win or you don't win. And whether you've had 750 shots on target or you've had 1 shot on target, doesn't matter at the end of the day. All that matters is what that scoreline is at the end of the game. Everton lost the game after having so much control of the game and so many opportunities, and that for me is just not acceptable. We can look at it and go, it's unlucky, or we'll be better next week, but that's how you become complacent, and that's how ultimately how you end up relegated. We can't do that, and Sunday will be much more difficult than what Fulham was for many a different reason. As I said, Aston Villa are a much better team than Fulham, and we're away from home, and whether or not that should have an impact, whether or not that has an impact for other teams, we know that has an impact for Everton. And if this game is at Goodison, I would be infinitely more confident than what I am, given it's at Villa Park, because Everton and away from home fixtures just don't mix. Like I said, if we can go out, and we can go out and get something out of this game, by the way, Aston Villa, as good of a side as they are, they're not absolutely unbelievable. They're not Manchester City. They're not, 08 Barcelona or, 1999 Manchester United. They're a decent side, but they're a side that can be beaten. They're a side that can be frustrated, and they will be a side that because of that result last week, will probably have a little bit of pressure on their shoulders, because they've got to go out now in front of their home crowd, and they've got to put a performance in. They've got to go out now in front of their home crowd, and they've got to show all of those Aston Villa fans that result last week was actually just a one-off. that result last week wasn't actually, anything to go by for the season. It was just a bad performance, a bad result, and they move away from it. If they lose this game to Everton on Sunday, then all of a sudden there's a few sort of eyebrows being raised as to say, well, hang on, we've lost 2 on the bounce there, and we've lost 5-1 one week and then lost to a team that'll be struggling to stay in the league this week. So ultimately there will be that little bit of pressure on them, and Everton have to be able to exploit that pressure and have to be able to manage it as well. Having said that, that does mean that they will want to win that game, that extra 5%, that extra 10% more, and that's where defensively we absolutely have to be on the ball. Like I said, players like Ollie Watkins, Moussa Diaby very clearly can cause problems, and Everton have to ensure that they eradicate the chance of that happening. And then ultimately it's the age-old problem, isn't it, of when you get a chance at the other end of the pitch, make sure that you take it. And Everton far too many times on last Saturday didn't do that. And we've had far too many games in recent history where we've sat here and we've said we just didn't take our chances and it come back to bite us on the arse. That can't continue to be the case. Everton are in the market for a new striker. We spoke about Che Adams earlier on today. Whether you like it or not, he's somebody that can come in and add goals to this squad. And that ultimately is what we need. But he obviously won't be in before Sunday, so it makes no difference in this conversation. This will be a difficult game of football. It will. Whichever way we look at it, this will be a really, really tough game of football. And if Everton can come away, and again, call me negative, call me pessimistic, if Everton can come away from this game with a point, I'd be pleased with that. I would. And in hindsight, we might have 48 chances on goal, and Villa might have no chances on goal, and we might draw 0-0, and I'll be sitting here saying, oh, we needed to win that, etc. But that's circumstantial then. At this very moment, if you were to say to me, Cam, do you take a point on Sunday? I'll snatch your hand off for it, because I fear there won't be many teams that go to Villa Park this season and beat Aston Villa, and therefore, if we can come away with a scrappy point, just make it horrible for them. We've seen so many Everton performances over the years, at home and away from home, where we've been a massive underdog. And again, like I said, Aston Villa are a good team. They're not Manchester City. They're not, Chelsea or whatever. They're just a good side. There's an argument that they're better than Chelsea, I know, because of where Chelsea finished. But you know what I mean, historically. They're a good side. But make it horrible for them. Don't let them play around you. Don't let the likes of Ollie Watkins have all the time in the world. What we can't do is afford to allow the ball to drop to Ollie Watkins in the box and him have 3 seconds to console it and then another 2 seconds to aim his shot and get his shot off. No, if the ball drops to Ollie Watkins, wherever he might be on him straight away, so he hasn't got a second to think about his decision. If Moussa Diaby's got the ball on the wing, stop the cross. Stop the cross. Far too many times last week, Nathan Patterson allowed that cross to come in. And there's only so many times that cross will come in and it won't hit its target. And one time it'll hit its target and a goal will be scored. Stop the cross. Get tight to him. Another thing, Nathan Patterson 3 mile away from Willian at any given point on Saturday. Get tight to your man, so he can't put that cross in. Frustrate them. If we need to, make it rough, make it physical, do that. Do that. Do whatever we can to throw them off, to frustrate that crowd, because that crowd will get frustrated if things aren't going their way. Of course it will. Any home crowd does. So for me, that's what Everton need to do, and obviously it goes without saying. We simply cannot afford to be in a position where we have another 29 attempts at goal and not one of them goes in the back of the net. We can't. If we get a chance on Sunday, we need to take it. In terms of starting 11, I think it will be the same starting 11, but with Dominic Calvert-Lewin instead of Neil Maupay. I do think Dom will start. I think it will be Ashley Young left back, Patterson right back. I think it'll be Keenan Tarkowski against centre back, whether we like it or not. That ultimately is what will be. Pickford in goal, obviously. I think you'll see the same midfield, and I think, like I said, it will be the same attack with the exception of Dominic Calvert-Lewin coming in for Neil Maupay. And that will make us better. Of course it will, and we will in turn be better for that, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a much better striker than what Neil Maupay is, and he's a much better option than what Neil Maupay is. But ultimately, we still have to create opportunities for him, and he still has to be in the right place at the right time to put them in the back of the net. And that will be tough, because, as I said, Villa are a good team. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you confident for this one? Are you not confident? I'll be really interested to hear what you think. Obviously, we'll have the instant match reaction and the player ratings up on Sunday as well, so don't forget to look out for those videos. But big thank you all for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Subscribe if you are new, and we'll see you soon.